Hello and welcome into the Take the North podcast, along with Dan Wiederer of the Chicago Tribune. I am Mark Grote of Chicago Sports Radio 670 The Score. And if you are watching right now on YouTube, there's a third face today on the Take the North podcast. Dan, we are very, very happy to have on with us Tyler Dunne, founder of the Go Long at Substack. Tyler, great to see you. Thanks for coming on with us, man.
Thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure. You know, I go way back with Dan, way back to some late nights at Kilroy's, but it's great to meet you, Mark. It's a pleasure. Any friend of Dan is a friend of mine.
We'll see by the end of this podcast. No, it's great to have you on. I'm very familiar with your work. A lot of great stuff. First of all, wait a minute. Did you guys had some nights at Kilroy's?
Well, Grote, just for full disclosure, we are former colleagues at the Fayetteville Observer in North Carolina for a very short span back in the late 2000s. And that's where we met. I was part of the sports staff at the Fayetteville Observer that took one look at Tyler's work and said, yeah, we got to hire this guy. And we brought him in, and he was so good that he left within, how long were you there? Like 6 months, 7 months?
It was like 5-6 months. It was
it wasn't long.
It was a hot minute. Didn't really like living in Fayetteville, but I loved the newspaper. We had a great boss. Todd Adams was exceptional, and working with you was great. Just, you were in Raleigh, so you were in a little bit of a nicer city than me. But ever so often we'd connect in Fayetteville or Raleigh, and we kind of have kept in touch. You know what really helped though is I'm covering the Packers at the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. You're covering the Vikings at the Minneapolis Star-Tribune, and our worlds were just constantly colliding and combines galore, a Super Bowl mixed in there in Indianapolis. So yeah, I consider Dan one of my best friends in the biz.
Yeah, and some of those stories we'll wait for another day and another podcast.
I was trying. I
thought you were going to bring up a Phil Jackson Kobe metaphor from one certain combine. I'm glad that one can be waited for.
That's for my leadership podcast.
I mean, guys, it is a podcast, guys. I mean, this would be the place to reveal.
That's true. I don't give a shit. Yeah, let it riff. Whatever.
One of the reasons we did want to bring you forth and conquer here is because you've been spending some time on our turf, really. Looking in on the Chicago Bears, particularly with Caleb Williams. Recently did a long sit down with Caleb's personal quarterbacks coach, Will Hewlett. Also, as recently as this week, you've got a piece on Jonah Jackson up at golongtd.com that I would encourage our audience to check out. But let's start here, because obviously the Bears are again an offseason center stage story. This is a common theme here for Grote and I. In Chicago, and you're getting an outsider's look at another whatever it is, contagion of hope and hype and everything else that's there. Just on a big picture level, what is your reaction to Chicago Bears 2025 offseason direction?
How could you not be excited? I mean, it does start with some genuine enthusiasm, right? I remember we talked about it a little bit down there at West Palm. I think I did a radio spot right there at 670 at one point when they're going through the coaching search, and like throughout that line, bad ownership usually creates bad teams, like one way or another. And I'd be stunned if they get Ben Johnson. Like, why would Ben Johnson want to waltz into this situation with all these cooks in the kitchen and just a track record of hope crumbling into a trillion pieces, and everybody left wondering what in the hell happened? Wasn't this a team on the cusp? And he is the number one coaching candidate in back-to-back seasons. It is real what he did in Detroit. Love spending a lot of time around those lines, even beyond the X's and O's. I mean, he saw culturally up close how you take absolute slop and mold it into an NFC power. I mean, it's a different world there in Detroit. So, he warranted every bit of buzz that he's received the last 2 years, and warrants every penny that he got with this contract. I guess that's our answer, right? They just threw a lot of money at him, but
sure,
they got him. They got him somehow. So,
listen, they threw a lot of money, and they threw the big stage of Chicago, which every time this job comes open, and believe me, it's come open a lot more often than we'd want it to. There's a magnet here that appeals to coaches who see what Ben referred to as a sleeping giant here in Chicago, and who see the opportunity to be the person that awakens that sleeping giant and the spoils that will come with that. And I think that was obviously part of his attraction to get here. But from a Bears global perspective, you're talking about trying to make things right for their young quarterback. And in the last 7, 8, 9 weeks, you've gotten the best offensive play caller on the market. And then you've gone out and refurbished your interior offensive line with 2 trades and a signing. As much as Grote and I try to be the guys that put our foot on the brake and say, hey, slow down here. We don't need to let this get out of control here. Right. You can't not be impressed with the calculated direction that they've had this offseason.
That's exactly where I'm at too. I mean, from covering Green Bay and being around these Bears a little bit these last few years, I'm the same way. Like I'm trying to tap the brakes at every turn because you just, this thing goes sideways. Like there's the blocked field goal. There's a Thanksgiving Day clock disaster. There's the Hail Mary. I mean, the string of losses that they had in the middle of last season just boggle the brain. But how could you not be excited about all of these pieces kind of fitting together? They figured out their number one cause for concern within 48 hours. And I remember, we were probably both looking at who are they going to say? Trey Smith is getting locked up by the Chiefs. Who's even available at guard? And they aggressively get Jonah Jackson. They aggressively get Joe Thuney. They signed Drew Dahlman, who is perfect for what Ben Johnson wants to do. Jonah Jackson broke it down. Like in this offense, you need interior alignment who can get from point A to point B in a hurry. And he just flies off the ball as a center. Atlanta, they move their line a lot. It's an exotic running game there. So it seems like they handled all of that lickety-split right out of the chute. And it does come down to Caleb Williams. And that's kind of where maybe like you, Dan and Mark, him and Haugh, you want to get excited. I mean, Caleb Williams, a mobile athletic quarterback, a playmaker, dropped into this offense with Ben Johnson. You can see Ben Johnson's enthusiasm himself. I mean, he didn't even mean to take that shot at Jared Goff. I take him at his word there in West Palm, Dan, when he's like, look, I think he said he apologized to Jared Goff after the fact. I'm just so excited about Caleb Williams that his mind's got to be moving a mile a minute. I think it's genuine. I mean, in theory, on paper, this thing could reach new heights that the Bears have never seen at the position and never seen on the offensive side of the ball.
Wow. I mean, when you say that, and hey, man, we're all, Dan and I are the same. Tyler, we have the same amount of jadedness too, where we're like, oh man, again, here we are getting excited about something but there is more legitimacy, obviously. When you build your offensive and defensive lines in the offseason, lickety split like that, things are going to be good. To the Caleb part, and this is something that came up with your interview with Will Hewlett. What I came away from that is that, particularly to Caleb, is that Caleb seems conflicted in exactly what he wants to be. Does he want to be a pocket quarterback? Do they just want to put this guy in positions, roll him out, use his legs more? He seems like a conflicted quarterback. Do you think Ben Johnson can change that? And what type of quarterback is Caleb Williams?
That is, I think everything kind of boils down to that question mark, because I don't know. I think you're right. I think Caleb Williams really struggled with that last year, and he overcompensated. I mean, Will Hewlett, he's known him since he was, in middle school, high school. He said that he could see a quarterback that he's known forever, resistant to run, hesitant to take off and use his physical gifts, and almost overcompensating to be that pocket passer when, eventually he just hit the gas and took off and left defenders in the dust. And it's like, that's got to be a part of his game. I get it, but the Bears just lived that too. You can't do too much of that either. Mm-hmm. I mean, right. Justin Fields got everybody all excited a few years ago. We're thinking this guy is the future. He's the future for the position. Dan, what was that 2-3 week period like when Justin Fields is running for 150 yards a week? It was electric.
Yeah, no, there's no question.
That, though, real quick, the funny part about that whole season for Justin Fields, it didn't matter. He did unbelievable thing, extraordinary, fantastic burst, and it didn't matter. It didn't matter. Yeah. It wasn't good enough.
There is a tweet from after the Bears' home loss to the Lions at Soldier Field. This is a game where Justin Fields threw a awful pick six, immediately made up for it with an electric 60-yard touchdown run, and then ultimately couldn't clear the hurdle at the end of the game, which was leading the Bears to a game-deciding drive. And it just kept happening. And I remember there was so much excitement because the rushing records were being broken. And I think it was after the Lions game. It may have been after the Dolphins game, which was a similar script where it was all these highlight reel plays. But the result wasn't there, and the quarterback had the ball in his hands at the end to make the result there and couldn't get it done. And I said, well, wait a minute. It's really good to get excited, but the real answer in this league is to have a guy that can lead game-winning fourth-quarter drives by being a reliable passer when the game's on the line. We saw it very early as much as the hype was building that Justin had flaws there. Caleb already in his rookie season has shown you, okay, fourth quarter ball in my hands, I'm capable of going down, and none more memorable than the most recent in Green Bay and the season finale to finally break the Bears' 10-game losing streak, to get them over the hump and do that. And so that is something that's part of his game. It brings me back to the conversation you were just having with Mark about this concept that Ryan Poles has talked about with the quarterback position. You can have surgeons or you can have artists. And there are some guys that have to try to find a blend of being both. And I think that is an ongoing process here that no one is really sure what that pie chart should exactly look like with Caleb. And there is seemingly a push from Ben Johnson at the forefront of this, of being like, let's start with the surgery. Like we've seen you with the smock on, we've seen you with the pallet out. Let's get the scrubs on and let's go into surgery training for a little bit.
And we hear that Caleb Williams does have that in his game. I think it was Dennis Simmons at USC. He worked with him as an assistant coach day in and day out. And he insisted that he can win from the pocket. He can go through his progressions. He can beat you death by a million paper cuts. All the stuff that you're talking about, Dan, that you have to do late in the game to win. What does Colin Cowherd always call Justin Fields a YouTube quarterback? I mean, there's something to that. I agree. Like, we get caught up into the YouTube quarterbacks this time of year with all these prospects coming in. You got to win. Just taking exactly what that defense is going to give you, play to play to play to play. And you know that Ben Johnson is going to put him in those situations. And it's on Caleb Williams to see it, anticipate it, and throw it. Because he's going to have those 3 Mississippis, I believe, with this refurbished line and this play caller. Like the players are going to be open. The receivers are going to be open. Can he have the confidence and the mental aptitude to know where to go with the football and just trust it? And we keep hearing that he does have that in his game. And you mentioned some examples, but still, he was sacked 68 times. Even the last year at USC, man, it was fun to watch, but he's just kind of backyard footballing it a lot of the time. Now, is that the analogy I used with Will Hewlett? He kind of agreed. Is that Allen Iverson in 2001 with Tyrone Hill and Eric Snow and Matt Geiger and Todd McCullough needing to create out of necessity? Like, he has to jack up 30, 40 shots a game because the line isn't that good. He's got all these issues. Or is there a fatal flaw in there in Caleb Williams? I'm leaving myself open to that. Like, as much as I want to anoint him and the Bears, the Super Bowl contenders, we've seen it too often where we get really excited about a young quarterback, yet there is that fatal flaw that eventually shows itself. And it showed itself with Justin Fields, just like it's showed itself for so many young quarterbacks.
Yeah, you're right. You have to keep that open. It was a very up and down year, and there are obviously things that need to be smoothed out in Caleb's game. What about the brain part, the work ethic, the football character, all of that stuff, the makeup? And we've heard so much about it. I know Will Hewlett summarily, pretty much rejected any of that kind of stuff, or any notion that he has any issues in terms of all of that part. But what say you about that, Tyler Dunne?
Right. And Will Hewlett is a private quarterbacks coach.
Yes.
And I'm sure you guys have both talked to a lot of these guys, Quincy Avery. I mean, go right down the list. There's a lot of them, but Steve Calhoun with Jordan Love. I mean, they work with these quarterbacks day in and day out. So they do have a vantage point that is rare. I think we should tap into that wisdom and learn something. At the same time, I'm not an idiot. Like, I know that Will Hewlett's not going to sit there and bash Caleb Williams. But he did provide some specific examples of, Caleb Williams just taking the time to throw the football around with his son, who is a high school quarterback now. I believe he's at South Florida. I think he's a quarterback there now. He's just, there's no cameras, there's nobody around, but he takes, multiple hours to kind of show him a few things, have some meaningful conversations. Like, that stuff matters. There was a West Coast scout who was around Caleb Williams a lot. He was working for a team that wasn't in the market for a quarterback, but I think he just was so interested in Caleb Williams that he was there on campus and he talked to a lot of people, and he was convinced that Caleb Williams has an empathetic leadership style that is rare. Like, he does want to get to know players one-on-one in his locker room. So if that's true, that's a great quality to have as a quarterback as well. I'm sure you guys have both heard too, the other side. I've heard from some people that don't have the nicest things to say about a Caleb Williams. Every vantage point is going to be different. And I just think it's good for everybody to maybe hit pause and let's see what happens in 2025. All the excuses have been eliminated. Really.
It's
He's got
going to
the
be
line, he's got the weapons, he's got the play caller.
It's going to be fascinating to watch that unfold here. And Grote and I on our last episode had a conversation with some of the sentiments of the general manager Ryan Poles as the steering point to it about the difference between work ethic and work habits. And it seems to be internally with the Bears that there's a belief that the work ethic is there. And in your piece with Will Hewlett, he was quoted as saying he's not afraid to work hard. Now it's about refining the work habits and understanding exactly what you need to do on a day-by-day, week-by-week basis to make yourself the best possible NFL quarterback. And I think that's part of the journey that Ben's going to have to steer him on. Oh, by the way, Case Keenum's along now as QB3 to kind of tutor and mentor and point in that direction. But I did want to throw this at you, and you can respond to that in this next answer as well. You've spent a lot of time in Buffalo. You live in New York as we speak, and you got to see a little bit of the unlocking of Josh Allen, who didn't have the greatest rookie season, was a highly drafted quarterback who struggled initially, and then united with Brian Daboll in a way that helped launch him. And now Brian Daboll's gone, and Josh Allen is still very, very good, most valuable player. And so you have some insight into how that process occurred in that franchise with that particular quarterback. What do you take away from that union that might be applicable here?
And we can sit here and talk about X's and O's and grind the film and all that stuff matters because Brian Daboll worked his magic with Josh Allen. I mean, he really did. And he pushes him, and Josh Allen was open to that kind of coaching. But I think it starts with the relationship between Brian Daboll and Josh Allen. You know, when I did that 3-part series on Sean McDermott in December of 2023, you know, the part that I was almost surprised. I get it. Like, it's, if a coach is trying to stress the importance of communication and telling his players to execute like the 9/11 terrorists, I get why that would, make a little noise.
Yeah, it went a little bit viral, didn't it?
A little bit viral.
But it did. But it didn't go viral. And I kind of thought that it would, at least locally, is in part 3, several players told me just that that basically the Bills kept the wrong coach in so many words, that they believe Josh Allen and Brian Daboll had something special on a level of Brady Belichick, on a level of Mahomes Reed. Like the most important relationship in football and any sport is the head coach and the quarterback. It all starts right there. And as the offensive coordinator, just Brian Daboll knew how to push Josh. I think it starts with Josh Allen, actually. He's the son of a farmer, and yes, sir, no, ma'am. I mean, nobody wanted him out of high school. He's writing letters to all these colleges. He's still the same kid that he's never had an ounce of entitlement to him. I mean, watch him during a game. He never barks at teammates. I've never seen him light up, show up a teammate at all. I've never seen him throw his head back when something goes wrong at all. And I think that Daboll is fiery and feisty. He's a South Buffalo guy, and those in Western New York knows what it's like when you're from South Buffalo. And he'd get all over Josh, and Josh was open to the hard coaching. So there's that element, but it spilled into off the field. I mean, these are two guys that would hang out late at night, throwing some drinks back on a back deck, getting to know each other. It was a special relationship that the Bills had that there are players believe would have led to multiple Super Bowls if they somehow kept that thing together. So Caleb Williams and Ben Johnson, it's going to be important on so many levels. On Caleb Williams, just knowing how to pilot this offense and where to look, where to throw the ball, all that stuff, and being open to the hard coaching. But I'd be really interested to see how they kind of click off the field too, because that it's always hard to quantify. What does that mean, and how does it spill into? But it does matter.
Yeah, and he said several times, and you got to take him at his word, that he is open to hard coaching, that he's open to anything to get to be great as a quarterback in the NFL. One of the things that I believe was added since your article with Will Hewlett, you guys talked about last year, the Bears did not have any experience in that quarterback room. I mean, it was such a young Tyson Bagent. They signed Case Keenum. How important is that?
Man, Will Hewlett just really pointed to that as so important to have a veteran quarterback in the room. And he wasn't even saying it needed to be a player. I think he would have taken a coach, just anybody in there who has been there, done that, can you don't know what you don't know. And I think to the extreme, you saw this blow up for the New York Jets. I mean, they drafted Zach Wilson. There's no competition. Like, you're a captain, you're a starter, you're everything right away. and he just wasn't ready. He's completely overwhelmed by the playbook, by defenses, by the sport, everything. Now, Caleb Williams has a hell of a lot more talent than Zach Wilson. At least we think so. But still, like, the NFL is a different level. Like, you've got to build up an inventory of disguises and blitzes and coverages that you haven't seen before. There's a reason, like, these experienced defensive minds like Belichick and Tomlin, even Zimmer, to pull one from Dan's past.
I'll give you Brian Flores too, who's still here in the division.
Like, they own rookie quarterbacks because they know, like, we're going to show this rookie a coverage that he has never seen before, and we're going to wait till that last second to change it to something else. I feel like if Tyson Bagent, there's a lot to love about him, right? Yeah. And his dad. But what's he helping Caleb Williams in that regard? I mean, Case Keenum's been around forever. He's going to be able to help Caleb Williams week to week with these game plans and just showing him and preparing him in ways that only a player who's, in the live action where the bullets are flying has seen and experienced.
The word that keeps coming up is wisdom. That's the one that they keep using at Haugh to explain what they want in that quarterback's room to help guide Caleb through the year two kind of bridge that he's going to cross here, hopefully from becoming an overwhelmed rookie to a quarterback that becomes the in command leader of a football team that expects to be in the playoffs every single year that he's their quarterback. One of the things that they are working on this spring is trying to push Caleb into playing up from under center more. Ben has made the decision that he wants an under center running game, and that under center running game is going to open up under center play action attempts. That's going to make Caleb feel a lot more comfortable. Not easy to do for a quarterback who spent most of his football life in the shotgun, but they're going to push this, and they're going to push it hard over the next 2-3 months and then kind of refine things as needed for training camp. What are your sentiments on how big of a challenge that might be for a young quarterback who spent most of his life in the shotgun?
I think it's going to be a huge change. I mean, you guys have been around these quarterbacks that are coming from high school to college. So much of it is shotgun, look to the sideline. Oh, they tell me to do that. Clap my hands, go. Like, one read, athleticism, just take over a game. I'm not saying that was Caleb Williams, but when he was at his best, it sure seemed like that was Caleb Williams, didn't it? Like the highlight reels from USC, it's not like he's under center, turning his back to the defense, then flipping his head around and needing to see everything flash before his eyes and make a decision. I think that's a big reason why I'm going to kind of reserve judgment and tap the brakes and not get too excited, because I do think that's going to be a massive change for Caleb Williams. And but I think Ben Johnson, he's right. I mean, he was hired for a reason. He was hired to implement his offense, and his game plans, though, they do change week to week. Yep. And I do feel like, and you know this, Dan, like, but he's not going to, I don't think he's going to overwhelm. He could overwhelm Caleb Williams. Just, plop a 5-inch thick playbook onto his lap and say, learn it the next few months. But I feel like he'll be smart enough to just give him a little bit at a time. And Caleb Williams is going to have to keep up to speed with this, because it can get really complex and really complicated, because that's when this offense is at its best. But first things first, playing from under center. I think Ben Johnson needs to see that to know then, okay, we can unlock this package and that package and this play and that play. Well, and it will be an adjustment. How could it not?
Along with that, I'll tie this back to something that Will Hewlett told you that echoes the sentiments of what a lot of people have said about Ben Johnson, and it's that he has the combination of adaptability and intelligence that basically translates into elite football feel, right? Like, and just knows how to coach and feel that stuff out. What were the sentiments you took away from Will Hewlett in terms of why he sees the quote unquote perfect storm brewing between Caleb and Ben, from that standpoint, that the head coach will understand what buttons to press, when to press them, when to not press them?
I think he knows that, like, Ben Johnson, the reason that we all kind of look at him as the preeminent mastermind with X's and O's is it's like, he does have a system, but it's malleable, and it's going to fit the personnel. And I think that's probably what has Will Hewlett really excited. Like, he knows that he's got this playmaking quarterback who can improvise and do a lot of special things, and that Ben Johnson is smart enough to mold week-to-week game plans, like, around everything we're talking about here, where, all right, Caleb Williams does this one specific thing really, really well. Well, yeah, we want to get him out on the edges. We want to challenge defenses in this way that, because one thing that kind of, I think, frustrated Will Hewlett is watching these Bears games and knowing what Caleb Williams can do outside of the pocket and knowing what he can do athletically and just not seeing it. And part of that's on Caleb Williams, maybe overcompensating, but a big part of it's on the coaching staff and the Bears themselves for not calling plays that take advantage of those strengths. So, I mean, Ben Johnson is going to call plays to take advantage of what Caleb Williams does best. I mean, look at Jaden Daniels with Washington. Who was it? Was it Cam Taylor-Britt for the Bengals early in the year? Kind of threw some shade at Washington and said, oh, it's a college offense. Like, yeah, we're ready for their college offense. And, Washington then lights him up and they dance all over his grave and everything. But he wasn't wrong. I mean, I think that the Commanders were smart. Like, they built an offense around what Jaden Daniels does best. And that just wasn't the case for Caleb Williams and the Bears. It seemed outside looking in. So they've got some linemen that can protect him now. They still have those weapons. That's why he thinks it's a perfect storm. That finally Caleb Williams has a coach who is going to build week-to-week game plans around that skill set.
Well, I hope he truly does that, because we've heard that before in terms of offensive coordinators. Think back to Matt Nagy, that we're gonna build this offense around you, but then he didn't adjust. So I hope, as you use the word malleability, that he is that way, because it could look bad. I mean, who knows in the first couple of games? If that happens, I just want to know that Ben Johnson is going to be better at his predecessors, not necessarily just head coaches, but offensive coordinators that the Bears have had in adjusting, which I think is the theme of what we're talking about here right now.
You know what it's going to all come down to as well as just is Caleb Williams going to put in the work? And I don't know. I mean, we're hearing all the right things from Will Hewlett, that he is wired the right way. And how could you not be excited if you're Caleb Williams to have Ben Johnson as your play caller now, to see them aggressively get 3 interior linemen, and you still have these weapons? Hell, they might draft another weapon. They could do whatever they wanted to in the draft now. They've got that flexibility. Like, is he going to just pour himself into this profession like the absolute great quarterbacks do? I'm not sure we know the answer to that quite yet. There was that report out late last season that he had to kind of like build his own film. I don't know if there was anything to that, but I do think that if he can put in that time, that Ben Johnson's going to give him all the answers to the test. And it's on Caleb Williams as a young quarterback being willing to put in that time. I'm just thinking of Anthony Richardson and what he said last year. He's getting benched for Joe Flacco, and it didn't really seem like – it seemed like it was kind of a wake-up call, but not the wake-up call it really should have been, right? He comes back, and at one of his press conferences, I'm paraphrasing, he's like, yeah, DeForest Buckner says I got to kind of put in some more time, maybe show up early. So, I'm going to start showing up early. You shouldn't have to hear it from a veteran. You shouldn't have to think. You should just do it. Like Caleb Williams should just show up early, be the last one to leave, put in all kinds of time on his own, because what an opportunity you have right now as the Chicago Bears starting quarterback.
No doubt. By the way, you did bring up Jaden Daniels, so I'm going to ask you, who's going to be better at the end of the day? 10 years from now, Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels. It's maybe an unfair question, but I just asked you.
But we will revisit this on our 10-year anniversary show, and we'll see if you were right.
Who knows who will be co-hosting with Wiederer by then?
I know I'm supposed to pander, but I gotta go Jaden Daniels. Okay. I don't know. I can't get there yet with Caleb. I mean, Jaden Daniels is he's fun to watch, but it just seems like he's wired the right way too. Like I don't really have any reservations about him in terms of just putting in those hours behind the scenes. And he's got an offense that we've seen. I mean, he did it right away. So I don't know how you could say Caleb right now.
To be very clear here, we are not a pandering podcast, so
We
do
don't-
not expect.
No, I'm
pandering.
saying to your listeners.
Yeah, I know, but
Bears
that's why
fans
that's
are
not why
listening.
they're here. These people come for the real talk. They come for the truth, and so
Good,
you
yeah,
don't have
good.
to. You don't have to throw them cupcakes with extra frosting on.
All
them
right,
for
you
them
know what?
to-
Michael Penix is going to be better than Caleb Williams. No,
Before
Tyson
we get you
Bagent
out
will
of
be
here,
quarterbacking the Bears. Yeah.
before we get you out of here, one more thing from my end. The Jonah Jackson piece that you wrote this week, just let our audience know, one, where to find it, two, what your takeaways were from reconnecting with Jonah Jackson, a guy who obviously has had some success in this league, but is coming off a year that was hardly a storybook in LA.
no doubt, Dan. Thanks a lot. Yeah, I caught up with Jonah. We probably talked, I don't know, 30, 40 minutes the other week. And I kind of knew him back in his Lions days for a piece on that Lions offensive line, which was wild, sitting down with Penei Sewell and Taylor Decker and all those guys, like right before they kind of turned that thing around. So there was a relationship baked in there. But I guess that was the launching off point. Like, what in the hell has happened in the 3 years since then? And it's been a lot. I mean, the Lions turned everything around, and he had all these injuries. He gets the contract with the Rams, but this scapula, man, it was a small little crack. I mean, I'm sure he broke it down with you guys as well. But it was such an innocuous play in a training camp practice. Like the Rams staffers, they couldn't believe he got hurt on this play. So he misses 4 weeks. He returns, cracks it again, gives it more time to heal 8 weeks. And by the time he comes back, they throw him into a position that's unnatural. You know, he's admittedly not a very good center. I mean, he is a guard, doesn't play well. And then McVay kind of just gives up on him and just benches him. But I think how he handled it all is really admirable. You know, he was a good teammate. And I think a lot of that came from how much his life has changed in the last 3 years, where before we talked a lot about what he lost, like his grandmother, who was basically his mother, died. He was the last one in the hospital room. It was a really traumatic experience for him. That was really rough. But since then, he got married. He's got 2 little kids. I mean, his whole perspective on life is totally different. I think he handled that situation really, really well. And now he's back with somebody who believes in him. You know, Ben Johnson was the tight ends coach when he came in, and he's working a ton with those offensive linemen. So he knows what Jonah Jackson does best. And I think that he'll use him in a way that, you know, he wants to be used at guard. No, not playing center, but at guard, movement plays. And they just, it all starts on the line. Like, you can't do all this fun stuff offensively and get all innovative like Ben Johnson wants to do if you don't have 5 guys up there just kicking ass. And I think that's what they're trying to build.
Tyler, this has been great, man. Thanks for your time. Tyler Dunne, golongtd.com. Thank you for not pandering on the Take the North podcast. We do appreciate that.
I'm ashamed I even use that word now.
You actually get fined if you pander on this. And while we're talking about words used, Grote, this is a good idea that we're going to spitball here. We got to start coming up with a Take the North glossary, because we obviously had our long discussion last week about panache. We know how I love the word juice. Now, you and Tyler, within the last 2 months, have both used the word lickety split here on this podcast. And so I think that has to become part of the Take the North vernacular.
I think it's a product of being a washed up dad at this point, right? You just start using words like lickety split.
You kids get over here, lickety split. Hilarious. Tyler, thank you so much, man.
Hey, thank you guys. Any day, anytime. This was fun.
You got it. Thanks to everybody for listening to and watching the Take the North podcast. For Dan Wiederer, for Tyler Dunne, for our producer, Adam Studzinski, I'm Mark Grote. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening.
Great talk. See you out there.